origin.
That's a whole thing too, man. I was balling in that movie. That was crazy.
You too? Oh my gosh.
Like, I like Ava's stuff, and I saw her her interview, the one I sent you, and I didn't know it had something to do with like Trayvon Martin. I was thinking like, oh hell no. Oh hell no. I ain't gonna walk into that on purpose.
Right.
But it was her, and I kind of trust the way she kind of does stuff. She has a touch about things. It's almost like but somebody who cares for you like a big brother or sister, you know they got you if they take you through it. So you don't mind holding their hand to go through it. I'm like that with her directing and the way she touches on stuff. I know it's gonna be heavy and hard, but my big sister, got me to get through this, right? She's holding my hand, and I know she won't. Cover your eyes, Jay. You can watch this part. She kind of treats it like that when she's directing, and I appreciate that. So I know it's gonna be hard and a lot, but I know that she would protect me, but give me the truth.
But I think that, and I don't know if you've done a podcast on her in particular, but I think that build up on her is a great opening right there, because she didn't have. I have a master class, and she has like
taking that.
Yeah, it's good. There's so many things that you could do under it. But I started hers, and she basically was like, if you want to take this master class to watch me make a film, then you come to the right place. But it's not just for that. It's just for life. And so far, like, some of the stuff that she's talking about is prepping for life. She's like, I wanted to make a film. She's like, I didn't have any, I didn't go to film school. She had some, background, but she was like, I wanted to make a film. And she came out the box like, these are the ones that I want to make, and was successful at it. And even, along with this as well. And the process that she talks about, how she came up with these different kind of concepts, because I wasn't expecting it to be, I don't want to get too much into, because we can discuss that, but I didn't expect them to break into like different narratives in the movie, narration basically in the movie, where she's like, and there was this man in this picture, and like, what's happening here? What's going on? She's like, and this man was, and I had heard about that before, but I did not know. I just knew, like, look at this man in the picture. He's not doing the sloop. That's all I knew about that man. I didn't know nothing else about him. Right. But for her to be like, boom, now let's talk about this thing over here. Oh, wait a minute. You think I forgot about him? Let's go back. You know what I mean? It was, when I posted something on Facebook, I basically said it was kind of a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, it was. A lot of hard truths that was going on with that. And everybody was included. So if you didn't think of somebody connecting to them, she got you on some other end and showed how it's how it really sits on top of each other. It's the same thing,
Even though I know we're going to talk about this later, there's like a connection with American fiction and Origin in a sense of the mothers, the family thing. They both were, having these changes with their mothers. And the other thing was Trayvon Martin, because when he held that award out, like, that was, every time you see, it could be a whole bunch of people, not just Trayvon, but the first person I think about, and you said it too, Skittles, grape soda, that's the connection without anybody saying it. And then in this one, Trayvon's, all through it. And immediately I got a gut punch, because her son was the same age as my son. And I was like, you can read about this stuff forever, right? I'm sure it affects you every time somebody says Trayvon Martin, right? Because we know what happened to him. You never know how close you can be to situations that occur. I think the closeness for us is the fact that we both have boys, or anybody in America who is concerned about Black men. You know what I mean? When I saw it, I was like, okay, we all read about it. We all heard about it, but she's showing us this boy go in the store, talk to this woman on the phone. She's showing us step by step how this happened. And the thing that I really loved about it, we didn't see him at all. Meaning the guy that killed him. We didn't see him at all.
Yeah.
We didn't see him at all. She didn't flash over to the person that called, like on the phone in the corner. Oh, there's something going on out there. We didn't see anybody but this young man minding his business, walking down the street. and telling this girl, this guy's following me. Right. Now he's turning around. And that's all we needed to see. And that's what I loved about that movie as well. Yeah.
And why would we have his perspective anyway? The person who was definitely wrong. And I thought it was powerful, the fact that she had the real recordings that we were following. She narrated the real recordings. So, you know, even with the call with the woman saying that, you know, who's that screaming in the background? You know, even that. So that was like real recordings, and she just did, you know, the video to go on top of it. Yeah. It was just craziness. And it's amazing how people could have heard that and still, I know in my mind's eye, that's what I saw. And it's amazing how people heard that and didn't see that because they had a different verdict. So it's amazing how information, depending on who's taking in that information, what they see. Because to me, that was the same what was in my head in the first place.
Yeah, and what they want to see. Because without seeing what we saw or actually hearing the tapes and just hearing about that story, but hearing those tapes, that was clearly someone crying for help, and it was a kid. It wasn't any base in it. You know what I mean? It was clearly a kid. Anybody that's yelling for help needs help. You know what I'm saying? For their mama, they're not saying help because they got a gun in their head, their hand. They're saying help because they're being outpowered.
And it was very interesting too, kind of how they had it where it's almost like he shot him to kind of shut him up because he was screaming too loud.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, and that makes sense too.
Yeah, so. You know, and him saying he wrestled with me, and they're like, look at you, and look at this kid soaking wet. You know, you said before you got out of the car, you made a judgment that they're always getting away with it. They're always getting,
and they told you not to get out the car. Don't follow. Do not follow.
That for that reason alone, he should have been charged with something. He should have been charged with everything.
It's not our justice.
The fact that he defied what the law told him not to do. He should have been found guilty for that. Because if he didn't get out the car, stayed in the car, follow him as much as you like, but don't touch that boy. And he got out with a gun. But
that same law deputized him and said it was okay for him to walk around with a gun as well.
Right. So I wrote, you know, I was in during the pandemic, I had joined this poetry thing. I think I had told you about it before, where they, you know, they do like lessons and they're supposed to be, they publish some books and they give you these prompts. And one of them, I forgot what the prompt was, but I wrote this poem about that, about him and his mom. And I have to reread it because it's been almost like 3 years now. But one of the things that I found in my like research of that city that he was from, that was normal. Lynchings were a normal thing there. You know what I mean? That was just considered normal. So he unfortunately passed away in a state rather, because Florida is one of those top, ranking states as far as lynching is concerned. But he was murdered, because that's what he was, murdered in a city where it was normal, for them to hang people regularly. Just normal for that to happen. So those people who were involved in that generation of idiocracy bred people who keep pushing that same button. Mm-hmm. So you get a jury of those people, right? Yeah. Of course he was found innocent. Yeah, this is and this is the part that I loved about what she said. How does a Hispanic man, remember when she mentioned that? Yeah. It's the westernization. I was like, preach, talk that talk. Yeah. He is not white. His father is white. Yeah. His mother is Hispanic. How in the heck do you get out of the car and chase this black boy down? You clearly knew he was a boy. There's the thing about the picture that we see of Trayvon, every time you look at it, you see a boy. Yeah. There's no angle. There's no position. Every angle that you see his face, he is a child. He is a child. So that was just basically power. That was him feeling... Yeah,
and privilege.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting because Miles Frost played him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that kid looked familiar. And I just seen him in New York in December playing Michael Jackson on that MJ play I went to go see in New York.
Okay.
So I was like, I remember that kid. I was like, oh, that kid looks familiar. So he played Michael Jackson. Yeah.
So there was a play on Michael Jackson in New York.
Mm-hmm. It's now playing in San Francisco, but it was playing in New York. I saw him on Broadway. It was a beautiful Beautiful play. And one of my boys just seen it last weekend in San Francisco.
What's the name of it?
MJ the Musical.
Oh, I gotta go see that.
It's incredible. Incredible.
I gotta go see that.
It could have been shady and messy, but it wasn't. It was very well done. Well done.
I gotta go see that. Yeah.
So it was good to see him. So when he said he's going to leave to do some other stuff, because he does music on his own as well, and he also does acting. So it was neat to see, like, oh, he did something. Right out the box. He did a big movie. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Oof. I mean, I'm really gonna enjoy when we talk about this one, because there's like, boop, boop, boop. This is definitely one where I'm gonna be like, hold on, let me stay on track. You know, the book of Clarence too, but with this one, how she like 360 thing, it's just incredible, just in the sense of that. But then I also thought, how sad is it for his mom, for him to be that marker in time where this is the legacy. This is the legacy, the unfortunate legacy of him. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, for it to be in her hands, you can't beat that. So I'm going to ask you this one thing, and I know we're going to talk about it. Did her definition of, race and caste, did that make sense to you? Did it change your way of thinking about racism? Part of me was kind of like, so where is she going with this and why, right? And I'm thinking like, okay, are you trying to, circle around in a way to bring everybody along so you can understand what that means when it's being said? Like a discussion with hope. We might think two different things. Let's get an understanding of what you think hope is and what I think hope is, and then let's have a conversation about hope after that. But right now, you're thinking something different than I'm thinking it is, and we're going in circles. So I took it as her trying to lead people around the long way to get back to the same thing. Because regardless of what you call it, it's the same situation. I don't care if you call it caste or not. Be it caste or race or whatever, or privilege or non-privilege or whatever, hierarchy or whatever, that the end result is the same thing, that it's wrong, it's not cool, and it needs to be changed. Right. So the purpose of her thing is to speak to a bigger audience, to bring people in. So that's fine. So her job is to explain to folks, to make them feel understand and connected, but for the average person, we're not gonna go around all that way to do it. But if it helps to give understanding and to possibly make change, then maybe that's fine. But I thought it was like a long roundabout way. That just shows the journey of us having to have explained something so somebody can understand how we feel, versus taking our word for or admitting what's going on. Right. In one way, it's wasteful. In another way, I understand why it had to be done. But I thought the way that John Berthendahl played her husband did a great job. I think how the relationship was and how they met was innocent and stuff like that. So I think all that stuff was covered. So if somebody's wondering if this was happening because of this or that, they kind of covered it in a way, which was smart. And I think how he wasn't trying to say that he knew everything, but he was encouraging and kind of calling her on her stuff. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting how he was serving the older Black woman when she grew up in a place knowing how things are going down, and for her to have witnessed that with her son-in-law in that way, I thought that was beautiful and done well, and it said a lot, even though it was a little thing, So all that kind of stuff was nicely done, and I like how it was brought up, because sometimes we will do something and include something else to cover our own butts on a certain thing that we might be going through. And sometimes the narrative get lost because we're saying we're talking about this, but we're really not. And so I didn't know if that was a situation, if that was going on with this or not. I wasn't for sure. It turned out not to be, but I thought it was interesting to add that in this already messy thing, because you already threw in the whole thing about caste. So to have that and then mix it in with interracial relations, not that she can't have that in there, but it was already a big task. And sometimes when you throw extra stuff in there, it could get mucky because it's just like too much stuff on one thing. And if you ain't understanding one, to throw an extra, like you said, then there's colorism, and then there's a woman holding her purse, and then there's the cops pulling you over. It's like all that in the same day. That's a lot. Not saying they don't happen, but sometimes you guys separate and talk about things separately because sometimes it's not exactly the same. And I like how it was shown in there how that could be a problem, because when she was talking about the whole thing with the Jewish woman saying the Jewish plight is different than the Black, right? And so I like that was touched on, because it was almost the same thing. When you start throwing too much stuff in there, it can be the same, but not exactly the same. And I thought that Jewish woman did a powerful statement talking about, hey, they want to use you guys for economics, but for us, they wanted us gone. I was like, well, oof. Not a bad that movie was so good.
Not a bad point.
Not a bad comeback.
I don't know, but that's what happens when you throw extra stuff in the pot. Stick to your own pot. Sometimes it's a veggie soup. Don't put meat in it, because sometimes when you do, it ties you into a whole bunch of other stuff that you may not be ready to have that conversation with. So that's why sometimes we need to just keep it simple. And sometimes when we do all encompassing, you get all the problems, you get all the things that might be making something else fall apart. You fall apart because you're associated with it. So I wouldn't have mixed all that stuff in, but I think she did it in a good way. But for some, that could have been a problem because you're mixing up too much stuff. It's like, all this is boiling down to a black kid getting killed, but it went to Jewish people and it went to Indian people, all this kind of stuff. Like, why can we just talk about black folks without it happening to us too? And it's like, they do that to us. So why are we doing that to us too? Yeah. Unrelated story, but related. Went to go get some coffee and there's an Indian gentleman there and he was talking, he's from the community and blah, blah, blah. And how Black Lives Matter, and he wanted to be on the panel. And he said, like, I was trying to be with them, but they removed me because I said the simple thing, all lives matter. It took everything in me to swallow. It's just like, that's how you just know, when it comes to race and cultures and stuff, like, it's not all the same. Just because you're brown don't mean nothing. Just because you're black doesn't mean nothing either. It's culture, And so it's so interesting that he could say that. And I had an answer for him, but it's just like, you know what, maybe I'll pick another time because I just got too riled up about it. But I was thinking like, dude, if something was happening to your kids and you went to a doctor, how would you feel you explaining what's going wrong with your kid because it keep being a problem, and then some other person outside that door that didn't make that appointment is saying, hey, my kid hurting too? You would be pissed. And you would be like, my kid is right here and that's who I'm dealing with. It doesn't mean you don't care about the kid outside that door, but mine's the one that's here that's getting attention because he keep having this problem. And it's as simple as that. But I'm just like tooling my feelings. But I'm thinking like, yeah, they was right to eject you from that group because you are not on the same plan.
And what was your purpose of even joining a group like that if you weren't, you know what I mean? If you're coming in with that kind of
because people want to show solidarity,
ideology.
But they want to show solidarity by changing the narrative. So part of me is like, you're putting too much stuff in there. But it's her story and she's telling it the way she wants. And I heard the real book is all these different stories. So that's her way to break it down. That's her way to justify. And like I said, some of that stuff might have been stuff because of her relationship, other stuff that's going on, her family stuff was. So I can't tell her how to tell her story or what to grab and pull in. But I'm just saying a lot of times when all this other stuff gets muddied around in there, the narrative gets thrown off. Because it's almost like saying, what are you complaining about then? Because they wasn't exterminating you.
Yeah.
Your property and money, but you're alive. Like, it's a danger even putting that in there. Even though it's just true, and I'm not mad, but I'm just saying that could be enough to be like, what are you complaining about?
I mean, I think, like you said, it's going to be a really good discussion because when she said to her cousin was like, leave Jewish people alone. I done told you, leave them folks alone because you don't come back with good comebacks because you sitting here now the day after I should have said. What she said hit me, and I probably teared up a little too when she was like, you're saying it's this number for, Jewish folks. We don't have a number. Yeah. That was a simple, good line. We don't have a number. And the thing about it was the Jewish lady still came back with, okay, but I'm still dying on the hill that I'm on. Right. That's not changing anything with me. I still said what I said.
But that's why you don't mix conversations. Because it doesn't apply to everything. And the thing about it is, regardless, I don't need to convince you that I'm in pain. I know I'm in pain. Only person that needs to know that is me and the doctor. And if you ain't there to fix it, why am I telling my neighbor my pain and their neighbor can't do anything about it? That's just me.
And that goes off of what we're basically raised on. You don't talk in mixed company. You don't talk about, God and politics. You know what I mean? It's like you were in a mixed environment and you were going with this challenge when innately as Black folks, we usually shut that down anyway.
And even though it hinders us and we've got to be less of a person just so we can survive, there was some reasoning behind that because we are held liable more so than somebody else. And so us moving in that, even though it might seem silly to some, it's kept us around probably longer than we normally would be because we don't have the same grace of like not being held, our words held against us and all this other kind of stuff. We can't even do no damn rap songs without using it in court now. So that goes to show you. But they ain't put no directors in jail for those mafia movies. So
right.
So sometimes it seems silly the way we move, and this lends into how Monk was acting in American Fiction, being closed off and not sharing everything, and Monk's brother not wanting to tell everybody he was out because they didn't want no. So all that stuff, yeah, it's all connected. It's all
I think that's gonna be, if we're talking like that would be a nice. That's gonna be, because we naturally talk like this. The tie-ins between the three. Yeah. You know what I mean? As I mentioned, the Trayvon thing and the mom thing, but the tie-ins of, like you said, like nice politics or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, in order to get this place, I have to maintain, you know what I mean? That was a theme in both movies, as you mentioned. So,
and also their narratives outside the norm that they normally have for Black people. Like, they don't, it's against the narrative of Black people being normal, having normal problems, narrative of what the truth is about race, even though people try to act like it's not a thing and is use it as an empty word, but not all the stuff that's surrounded by it, you know, like, and also a smart person breaking it down and finding the words. And also the narrative of us even being around, like Jesus being Black and all the other all that stuff was counter narrative for Black people. Like, all those situations people don't see Black people being in. And they did perfect examples of each one without it being offensive, without it being too crazy, with it being a good story, and still being counter the narrative. And still being believable and true.
Right. And all of it with a sense of belonging. Yeah. It wasn't in any of those films. You know, we see more with the Book of Clarence, where we saw the work he did to get where he got. But once he was there, he belongs. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with the other two movies too. Yeah. There wasn't a time that they felt like, oh, I gotta, make myself small in these positions. Even the fact that they were able to argue with these folks at the levels that they were in, or even have a conversation that was contradicting them, is not something that maybe the average person of their hue actually gets an opportunity to do. So that part was interesting too, that her comebacks and his comebacks were not stomping my feet, getting mad, being militant. It was on an intellectual level, like, you go in there and I can go there with you as well. You know what I mean?
But I think it was good that she did go through that in a way, only because if anything, it could kind of have her work up her narrative in a way where she can avoid that if she wants to, or have an answer if it comes up.
But that'll then be the only reason. It might have pushed her towards that part of talking about how Hitler basically used, our semantics or whatever, ideology.
But we knew that, and you could still talk about race without including that, or just including that. But like I said, it's just to be interesting. It's a different conversation when you're talking about your daughter versus your kids. And your conversation is limited differently because you said kids versus your daughter. Daughter is straight line, all the things that could be whatever. You start talking about issues, and you gotta start splitting it out because your son might have different issues than she does. So anytime you have anything wide, it's gonna open it up further than it may need to be when the daughter's the only one having the problem.
Right. Gotcha.
Why is everybody up in here and there's only one person?